So the first topic I'm going to talk about is that Cillian Murphy has been confirmed by the producer of 28 years later that Cillian Murphy would not be in the sequel. He played one of the characters in the original movie 28 Days Later. So this sucks to hear because I really love his character from that movie, and I was hoping he would be in this movie. Now this movie is going to set up a trilogy. So the good thing though is at least it sounds like this is what the producer said on 28 Years Later. It's coming out this year. On this, we wanted him to be involved, and he wanted to be involved. He is not in the first film. I'm hoping there will be some gem somewhere along the line. He's involved at the moment as executive producer, and I would hope you work with him in some way in the future in the trilogy. So it sounds like Cillian Murphy's character, Jim, could appear in 28 Years Later two sequels, because it has been confirmed that this is going to set up a trilogy, depending on how this one does, obviously. So it does suck to hear that he won't be in this movie, and he's only an executive producer for the first movie. But at the same time, it sounds like they're hinting that he could possibly appear in the sequels. So I just hope he appears in one of these movies, because I loved his character from that 28 Days movie, the original movie, and I really want to see what happened to his character. I know you also had the two girls in 28 Days Later that survived then. One, are we going to reference those two characters that he was with at the end of the first movie? In one of the sequels, if his character comes back. But it's disappointing to hear that he won't be in the first movie, though. The next topic I'm going to talk about is that a Grimm reboot movie is in development at Peacock. Now, Grimm was a TV show that lasted 6 seasons, which I loved personally. It was a show that aired on Friday nights, I remember. It was basically kind of like a cop procedure show about the dark fairy tales. And it did. I thought the ending of the show was satisfying. Now, there's not much details on this Grimm reboot. It doesn't say whether this is something this Grimm movie reboot is going to be in theaters, or is it like a streaming movie? Now, it sounds like this won't be a complete reboot though, because the little information that is sounded about this Grimm movie in development at Peacock is that it will have connections to the Grimm TV show, but also be a movie for people who haven't watched this show. So I'm curious what that means. What connections is it going to have to the original Grimm show that lasted 6 seasons? What's the new stuff that's going to be in this movie? And I'm also curious whether this is going to be a streaming movie on Peacock, or is this a movie that's going to be released in theaters? But I am excited to hear that something's going on with the Grimm property, because like I said, I love the Grimm show. I have the complete series on Blu-ray where it's like that, where it's like the Grimm book from the show with the disc inside, which I thought was to me one of my favorite complete series physical mediums, because I think that's just cool that you had it the Grimm book with the disc inside. And it's a show that I highly recommend go check out if you haven't. The Grimm show, to me, was a great show, and I really loved how they did the fairy tales now. They kind of twisted some fairy tales around. It was more kind of the darker side. So I'm glad to hear about any news of the possibility of going back to that world. And the original showrunners are all going to be involved, so that also makes me excited that they're having the people back from the creators of the original show. Which again makes me curious, definitely what they mean by it being something that people who haven't watched the show can get into, but also have connections to the original show. So I'm curious, like I said, what those connections are. Definitely exciting news just for me personally, who's a big Grimm fan of the Grimm show. The next topic is the Better Man movie has flopped. It opened to 1.9, and I'm not surprised by this. I don't really have any interest in checking out this movie, even though I will say this, I've heard a lot of great things about this movie when it comes to biopics, like Better Man, and that's it. And it's the movie where if you've seen the trailers, it's based on some UK famous singer or rapper. I can't remember the name of the person the biopic is based off of. But I'm not familiar with that person when it comes to the biopic who this is based off of and telling the story of. But I don't think the trailers really got people hyped up for this movie called Better Man. And I think the idea, like, the gimmick of making the main character look like a chimp, and from what I heard in the movie, nobody ever acknowledges that he looks like a chimp. Was, you know, I I can understand doing that to make it different amongst other biopics, because a lot of biopics tend to feel the same structure story wise. But I also think it's one of those niche ideas where I just don't think a lot of people were gonna go and see this movie. Like I'll probably watch it when it comes available digitally streaming. I just don't really, even though I've heard a lot of great reviews about it, I just don't really have interest in checking it out. And it does suck to hear that a movie that sounds like it's really good just completely flopped with 1.9. Like the buzz of that movie is 110. Plus, you got to add on the marketing with that. I just don't see this movie having legs at the box office, even though it's getting good word of mouth. The last topic I'm going to talk about is the director of The Substance says she has no plans to do a prequel or a sequel. And look, I'm somebody that didn't like The Substance, which I know I'm in the minority of that. A lot of people love that movie, consider it one of the best horror movies of last year. I know Demi Moore has been praised for a performance, which, for me personally, I just wasn't a fan of that movie, and I think she's okay in that movie. Like, she's a great actress, but like the only time I felt like she really like, well, I was like, oh my god, I was wowed by her performance was that one scene when she's looking in the mirror, which I think is the best scene in the whole movie. But like, I think she's good and like, she's okay to good in that movie. Like, she's not bad in that movie or anything. But it's a movie that I just for me didn't click for me personally. But I know I'm in the majority of that. I know a lot of people love The Substance. When it comes to director saying she has no plans for a prequel or sequel, that makes sense to me because if you watch The Substance, I really don't know how you like what the story would be if you did a prequel or sequel. Like, there's really the way it ends doesn't really lead us up to a sequel, and a prequel. I don't know what a prequel would be for a story to that movie. So it makes total sense why the director isn't going to do a prequel or sequel to The Substance. Like, I just don't feel like there's anything story wise you can do. So that's all the movie topics today. Until next time, movie fans.